PSVR is pretty cool, but I think you can understand that the moment I get my hands on PSVR 2, I want to get this thing as far away from me as possible, because PSVR 1 is just very outdated. Or is it? See, there is one way for this ancient piece of tech to escape its fate. One reason why I'd allow it to remain tethered to my PlayStation 5, and that is potential. I feel like there's still potential here. I still feel like there's an awesome game to be made. Now currently I'm about 1 week away from getting my PSVR 2. That gives me 1 week to make a proof of concept game. Should I succeed, I will lay foundation to potentially a Half Life Alyx type of experience in the future. Should I fail, well, I will banish this headset to the Shadow Realm and never develop for it again. Now you might wonder, why develop for PSVR 1 when PSVR 2 is just around the corner? Well, it's very simple, isn't it? I created Dreams, the fantastic creation engine on PlayStation 4 and 5. It supports PSVR 1, but doesn't support PSVR 2 and won't support it for at least another while. So yeah, I guess that's it. It's time to get creating. Time's a ticking. Let's do this. But before I start creating, what is the plan even? Well, I have a couple design pillars. One, very detailed atmospheric environments. Just like Web of Metal, the horror game I made in a week, I want to spend a lot more time than usual layering art. Pillar 2, shooter combat. My gameplay system is basically done already, since I'm using the VR combat template I made for my revolutionized movement video. Pillar 3, a slightly eerie, surreal setting. I won't create a story, just a world a story might eventually take place in. This game is also one of the few instances where I won't have to panic at the end to come up with a name for the game. I already know I want to call the game Concrete Sea. Oh, and that almost makes me forget about Pillar 4, very short length. That's not a feature, by the way, that's just a reality. I don't have any time to make this, so it'll be one of the simplest games I've made. That's why I call it a proof of concept. Let's start then. I essentially always start with creating the entire gameplay, playable character, enemies, etc. But this time I didn't start with the gameplay, but the first level instead. I began by blocking out the level. I had this vision of a futuristic cyberpunkish style alley with a balcony type thing that you climb up to. Then after that you enter the room connected to it, and there'd be a secret hallway. Environment art is where Dreams truly shines for me. Game development has a lot of aspects to it, but the two biggest time sinks are usually art and gameplay. It's very rare that someone has the time, the will, and the skill to do both well without compromise. I like to spend my time designing and programming, so I don't have the time, will, and skill to create assets. Still, I do want my games to look nice and somewhat consistent. If I worked in a PC game engine, I'd basically have no choice but to accept a low poly art style of some kind. But in Dreams, let me tell you, infinite assets all right there for the taking, with no importing process whatsoever. And even better, these assets are all easy to edit right in the creation space, allowing me to make any adjustments I want. Oh, this turns making a game like this from an impossible task into a suddenly very achievable goal. The library of community assets is the true selling point of Dreams to me. Now, I might not like creating assets, but I do like assembling them to form the environment art. It feels like there's a very linear relationship between geometric density and immersion. Every time I think I'm done, I just find another asset, clip it into another, and get the space to feel ever so slightly more real. It's very satisfying. Within no time, I had a pretty decent looking start of the level, but any kind of environment only truly starts feeling great after a lighting pass. I went for a turquoise red combo in terms of color, just one of my personal favorites in terms of the atmosphere it produces. For the secret hallway, I really wanted to evoke this feeling of entering a foreboding surreal plane of existence, so I placed some very bright oversaturated yellow lights. With this part of the level done, I transitioned to making the enemies. Like I said earlier in this video, I'm using a gameplay system that I've made before. It has all the mechanics I'll need, like grabbing objects, shooting, climbing and reloading weapons. On the enemy side, last video I made an AI template, and I intend to immediately use it for this game. The enemy in terms of visuals is a concrete soldier. I just took a military character and sculpted the head myself. The AI did make me run into a couple issues, main one being that the hitbox of the invisible puppet you possess during gameplay can block the hitbox of your head. To get this game out as quickly as possible, I took a lot of shortcuts with the AI. I initially had the idea of using the stealth pattern system to create a stealth section, but no, that'll take too much time. I also had ideas for multiple enemy types, maybe one would periodically fly up and send projectiles towards you, or maybe one would use magic abilities to slow you down, but I scrapped it all and just made one single enemy with a pistol. Instead of doing stealth, I just turned the enemies into statues when not in combat mode and made them wake up when you start attacking or get close. With the enemies 90% finished, I created the first combat encounter. And I'm sorry if I'm a bit secretive about the entire art direction. You know, what's all this obsession with concrete? What kind of place am I creating here exactly? What are these enemies? Well, here's the thing. I said this earlier, but I'm kind of trying to create a world here, and this is one of the first small steps. If I go overboard explaining everything, much of the mystery is lost, and mystery is exactly what I love most in my games. So, I won't tell you what's going on. Just enjoy the ride for now. Hopefully I'll be able to bring it all together in the future. One thing you might have noticed though, I didn't actually create in VR yet, so for all I knew, the scale of everything was completely off. Time for a test. With fear and excitement running through me, I entered VR and opened up my level. And somehow, I had absolutely nailed it. The scale was pretty much spot on. Everywhere. Well, things were looking great then. It took me only 3 days to get to this point. Pretty well on target to release the game within a week, right? Well, so I thought, let's do a little time skip. So, the week is over. Yes, it actually is, and I didn't achieve anything. Now the reason why is I just got hit by a massive wave of burnout again. Like I didn't feel like working on the game. Now there's also just something about this game that's just generally bothering me. It might just be that right now I have an idea for another VR game that I really want to work on. But also is that there's just a lot of small stuff that I still need to do in this one. When you think about game development, you tend to think about like mechanics and art, right? But there's also a lot of work that needs to be done in order to make a game flow well, in order to have like the cutscenes transition into gameplay and make sure you can't skip the combat encounters, that type of stuff. Like for example, there's one thing right now, with the first combat encounter you kind of fight in this pit. And besides the pit is a ledge. Now at the end of the fight I want you to go to that ledge and continue the game, right? But I don't want you to climb up there during the fight and skip the combat encounter, and it just... those types of small things just really tend to bother me, and I just think about them for ages and can't find a solution. It's really annoying. But knowing that my PSVR 2 was on its way gave me one last small push to do something. And so I started work on the thing I truly hate the most out of making any game. The tutorial. Now an ideal tutorial is one without massive walls of text, where you just play a level and mechanics get introduced to you by the time they're needed. But this game I'm making, way too small to gradually introduce mechanics, so I chose to make the tutorial a separate blank scene where you get shown all relevant mechanics in sequence. It'd start by showing you to grab the gun from your holster, then it'd tell you how the reloading works. I even made a puppet on a pedestal to kind of illustrate how the action should be performed. Great, isn't it? Well, it only took 30 minutes of working on this tutorial for me to completely lose my patience and my sanity, so I just placed some text on some cubes and considered my job very much done. I think you can start to see how over this entire thing I am. But there is so much more to do. Sound design for one. Just like Web of Metal, my goal was to give as many objects a unique sound as possible. Having some ambience also instantly transforms the atmosphere and makes the entire game feel more alive. Time, however, kept ticking, and I was not able to escape the inevitable. I'm so happy. But I'm actually not, because I failed. My lack of motivation really was the final nail in the coffin. If you want to see more of this kind of content, of course, be sure to subscribe to this here YouTube channel and don't forget to drop a like. There is a problem, isn't there? As long as this game remains unfinished, will I truly be able to enjoy PSVR 2? No. So let's finish it. This is what I did. I didn't care anymore about the results. Release was the only thing that mattered. One level, with 2 fights and a single climbing section, that is the game. Another week of development ensued, and slowly these things did fall into place. With the ending finally made, I tested the game a couple times and just released it. Concrete Sea is now playable in Dreams. Well, this was annoying and unexpected, wasn't it? I certainly didn't expect to feel sudden burnout during development. I feel like it was caused by the game not being challenging enough to make. This is always a tightrope I'm walking. When a game is too ambitious, I become overwhelmed with everything I want to do and lose the ability to work on any of it. When a game is not ambitious enough, I become demotivated because it starts feeling like I'm just throwing my time away. If you were to ask me what the hardest part of game development is, it's actually not of the work that has to be done, it's the mental barriers. Those are actually the hardest, because how do you continue to work on something when you feel like you're not making any progress? Or how do you continue to work when you feel like the end result is not really what you wanted? But remember my original goal. What I wanted to do here was see if there was any potential left in PSVR 1. And boy, do I think the answer is yes. The level I created looks amazing in VR, and though I purposefully kept gameplay very simple, I now know complexity is 100% possible. Let me put it like this. Think about an immersive sim like Dishonored. Think about stealth, picking up objects and throwing them, climbing up to high points, takedowns, combat. I know all of this is possible in Dreams with graphics that look better than pretty much all PSVR 1 games. Will I actually go ahead and cash in on this potential? Well, I don't know for now. Dreams VR is pretty much dead because it's so much of a niche within a niche, so I'd have to create my next VR game pretty much for myself. And on top of that, it's really hard now to go back to PSVR 1 after having experienced PSVR 2. However, I will say that there's so much potential here, and right now I feel so excited that I'd be surprised if I didn't make any VR content in the future. So for now, thank you for watching, I'll see you around, and who knows what I'll be making next. See you.